7:14 right now. Republicans pulled out all the stops for day one of the convention to appeal specifically to Black and Latino voters.
Yeah, from model and entertainer Amber Rose to Republican Congressman Byron Donalds, who happens to be from Brooklyn, to Goya Brand's President Bob Unanua. Political analyst and attorney JC Polanco is here this morning to recap day one of the RNC and to discuss Trump's huge legal victory in the Florida classified documents case. So good morning to you, JC.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. Well, we saw first day of the RNC in the books. Trump there clearly still recovering, but he picked his running mate. First term Ohio Senator JD Vance. A little bit of an interesting pick because he was at once a huge critic of Trump.
Huge.
But now you hear President Biden calling him basically a Trump clone, an enabler.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about him and if you think he was the right pick.
It's interesting. There's a couple of things to talk about there. J.D. Vance was clearly a never-Trumper. I mean, went as far as calling Donald Trump America's Hitler. I mean, think about that. I was a never-Trumper guy.
And he was rumored to be picked to be in a Hillary Clinton administration if she were to win at the time.
And he even said he would vote for Hillary. So it's an interesting thing to see this 180 on his part, but it was brilliant because he went from someone who wrote Hillbilly Elegy, someone who said that Trump brought the worst out of us, that he was racist and xenophobic, and because of that 180, now he's sitting as a U.S. Senator and now the VP nominee for the Republican Party. But let me tell you why I think this is interesting. Okay. First, he's 39, so he's the first millennial to ever run on a national ticket. He's a former Marine, he's a Yale Law grad, and he's a senator from a very important state in the Union. So he fits and checks all the boxes. What's so interesting about this pick is that it seems as if Donald Trump understands a couple of things. First, he cannot win re-election without converts. We saw Amber Rose last night, as you mentioned, Hazel. Yep. She was a never-Trumper. She was hardcore anti-Trump, and yesterday said, oh, my God, I saw the light, right? And nothing Trump loves more than for people who do the come to Jesus to him, right? And completely turn their lives around and dedicate themselves to Trump. J.D. Vance fits that model. Someone who's against, and now he's for. If you take a look at all the people who were once against, Marco Rubio, Florida senator, who was rumored to have been a VP pick as well, he needs these people to turn their lives around and come to him. Well, and then another thing is, he's able, J.D. Vance is, to connect with white, rural voters from Michigan, Western Pennsylvania, Northern Minnesota. You're looking at someone who's going to connect and fits the mold of the people he needs to bring out.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said he's the first millennial, because he's also appealing to the younger generation, right? Everybody's talking about age being a factor, and now you go to the complete opposite of the spectrum here. And he's somebody who they see as the future of the party, right? Yeah. And he's somebody who Trump said aligned himself with certifying the election, or not certifying, because that was a big thing with Pence. You know, he went against it. Anyway, I want you to take a listen to what Vance had to say about immigration, then we'll talk about it.
Are you a racist? Do you hate Mexicans? The media calls us racist for wanting to build Trump's wall. They censor us, but it doesn't change the truth. Joe Biden's open border is killing Ohioans, with more illegal drugs and more Democrat voters pouring into this country.
So you go. I mean, aligning himself really much with the former president on that issue, right? What do you take? What do you make of that?
Well, we live in New York City. We hear that kind of rhetoric. A lot of us are bothered by it because we know where it's going. But we got to remember, this is a big country, and a lot of people like that message. There are a lot of folks that like that message, and you know what's so interesting about this is that personality that he brings to the table, that personality Trump brings to the table, it's almost out of Hollywood. It's like a WWE Friday night match when you see Trump come out with his right ear covered at the Republican National Convention, people going crazy. It reminds me of growing up watching Hulk Hogan.
But that was a powerful moment last night when he came out, and then the song "Proud to be an American" came on. It looked like Trump was emotional.
You forget all about immigration. You forget about January 6th. You forget about the Supreme Court judge fix. So it's really all about a staging. And I think that the Trump campaign is doing a remarkable job. We're not talking about people's records or J.D. Vance's position on immigration, women's rights, or none of the like. We're talking about him being a great pick because it's the opticals. He fits the narrative. And I think we're seeing the Trump campaign do something very, very interesting, which is just completely take away the issues from the table and focus on what he brings to the table.
But do you think they also looked at the fact that his wife is the daughter of immigrants?
Absolutely. You know, it's a great story because you know what he'll say is, you're going to call me racist? Look at my wife and look at my children. How can I be racist? I mean, he checks off all the boxes, and it's an incredible affirmative defense.
I want to take your political hat off for a second, put your attorney hat on, because the other big news of the day yesterday was the false documents case thrown out against the former president, right? And that was a surprise to many. And the reason why is because they said that a pick of Jack Smith as the special prosecutor did not fit the mold, and that's where the issue was. Can you explain what exactly happened here?
I don't know. I'm a kid from the Bronx who became a Yankee bat boy for 2 years during high school. I thought I was the luckiest man in the world. Donald Trump happens to be the luckiest man in the world. He survives an assassination attempt. He gets the Supreme Court to give him almost absolute immunity. And now that his appointed judge in Florida has thrown out what was, I thought, and everyone thought, an ironclad case. And she does so on 2 grounds. First, the special prosecutor, she claims, was not approved by the Senate. Therefore, it violates the Appointments Clause of the Constitution. And second, it violates the Appropriation Clause. Because he wasn't appointed, and because he wasn't ratified by the Senate or approved by the Senate, then the funding he's been getting for prosecuting Trump is also unconstitutional. Now, it's not a dismissal based on the merits of the case, it's based on the minutia technicality of the case. Now, what's so interesting about this is that almost for 50 years, we have already understood that you have independent counsel, you have special prosecutors that are appointed by the Attorney General to go and carry the weight when something is too political, when it's too much of a hot potato that could impact the country and how it views the carrying out of justice. You appoint someone that's completely apart and doesn't answer to, so that they can do their job. Seems that conservatives and liberals all agreed until last night, until yesterday, when out of Florida, he gets given, and you know what's so interesting about this?
But in the past, hold on, in the past, have they been approved by the Senate?
Well, it depends. Sometimes, for example, the case in the Hunter Biden case, which is the one people are talking about, in that case, Weiss is the U.S. attorney, right, who's been appointed the special prosecutor. So he's been approved by the Senate. So that argument doesn't stay there. In this case, with the Trump documents case, the special prosecutor there was neither a U.S. attorney, was not appointed by the U.S. Senate, and that's what Judge Cannon is holding on to dismiss this case. It's just so interesting.
Yeah, it really is. JC, we would love to pick your brain for so much longer, but unfortunately we've run out of time. Thanks so much for
Thanks
coming
for having
in.
me.
Always appreciate your time.
Thank you.